Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Anchor of the Week. My name is Lucas.
And I'm Courtney, and we're an initiative of Hope and Anchor Community Church in London.
Each week, we will discuss different topics relevant to faith and Christianity in today's culture.
We're here to build a space for the church to share our experiences and challenge one another to grow in living like Jesus.
Hello, guys. Welcome to the Anchor of the Week.
Yes, it's good to see you guys back again.
Yes. And we have some new guests, friends of ours.
Yes, good
indeed.
friends of ours.
Yeah. So we have Eric and Ina.
How's it going?
The Johnsons.
Yeah.
Indeed.
There should be a graphic, I feel, that comes up.
That would be cool,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
probably.
Just like a large
Like
graphic.
it is
Johnson.
dun-dun-dun, like
Yeah.
that. You know,
Like
it's
a ton- like
rotating in.
Basically, like we used to make PowerPoints in in grade school.
Oh,
you
yeah, I
know,
love
and
those.
every slide had the transition that
Yeah, it's like, whoosh, like it flies in and then flies out.
Yeah.
Press one button and it leaves.
Yes.
You know, that's so great.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege to have you guys here because we like you, first of all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Like you too.
We like you guys
Oh,
too. Yeah.
wow.
For the ones
yeah.
who don't know, they are part of the leadership of the church as well.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Yes. And they've been friends of ours for many years now.
Indeed.
Yes.
Several years.
Ina was one of my first roommates when I moved to London, so
Oh, that's right.
we
Huh?
go way back.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Way
Yep.
back. Yeah.
Strong bonds.
Strong bonds. So it's a podcast between me and Ina now.
Yeah.
We'll do a second one later. It's fine. It's okay. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, but the reason that we have you guys today, other than the fact that
Because
of
they're
everything we just said, yes, they are married. Yes, Lucas. I was hoping for a smoother transition than that.
Top secrets revealed. You know.
Yes. Today, they will be talking to us about marriage and relationships and singleness and all of that good stuff that we
Yeah.
like to talk about, but don't always like to hear, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a fun
Sure.
topic.
It's
but
a fun
hard
topic.
sometimes.
Yeah. But we watched your relation. Well, when did you come into the picture?
When did I come to the picture?
Well,
3 years and a half ago.
I was like, the year was
Into marriage
1987.
or what?
And when did you guys get married?
About 3 years ago.
2018.
2018. Yes. Which date?
March 2nd.
Yes.
For the ones who
We
can
just
see,
got
that
it.
he's blushing.
Not third. Yeah,
Yeah.
I turned red real quick. If you guys can see this. Because I always mess it up because we were supposed to get married on a Saturday and then we moved it to a day before because the venue canceled and it's like
Yeah.
so every time it's like I know what day I got married, March 3rd.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, we didn't. So
You know, I feel like as long as you get the range.
hey, yeah, that's points.
I mean, I'm not married, so I don't know what the my advice probably
Points are
isn't
Yeah,
much.
points. You know, points are points.
It is.
It's all good.
Yes. But I mean, my point of all of that as well was to say that we actually, sorry, no offense, Lucas, got to see you guys through the entire journey of your relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like just being friends, the three of us, and then
For
to,
sure.
I mean, mine too. But yeah.
What?
You were with me as well through the whole
Yes.
time where
Yeah.
before I got married.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's true.
And then
Yes,
when you got
Lucas.
married-
Yes, Lucas. I was your friend before you got married and after you got
We
married.
celebrated and everything. I was
I
actually,
feel left out.
I'm married too. You know.
You know what? It's fine.
Yes.
No, yeah.
But
Sorry.
yeah.
Anyway,
So
serious.
basically, yes, here's again, guys. This episode will be essentially just this because we're literally just hanging out with our friends. Whether we had the podcast or not, this probably would be happening anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, really cool.
True life.
yeah, but basically, again, I feel like this would just be like a series of me recapping what we were trying to say.
Us throwing in jokes and throwing it off. My bad.
2
Yeah.
hours podcast.
A 2-hour podcast. Yeah. Ina is politely tapping Eric to tell him
Yeah.
to
If
please
you can't
calm
hear that
down.
on the microphone, she gently tapped my wrist like, shh.
I'm
honey,
tapping Courtney.
honey.
Yeah, but basically, you guys have authority in this area, and it's cool. And I watch your journey, watch you guys learn lessons as well. So, yeah, basically, this is gonna be a free reign. Brace yourselves,
Cool.
because yeah, basically, if you wanna. I think I've said basically 400 times so far in this podcast as
It's
well.
good.
I'm very sorry.
You want to,
Oh.
enforce the basics. It's more.
Just the basics. Hey, maybe that's an curring theme, underlying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I guess, I don't know. Like, I was thinking about this, like, what we were gonna talk about, like, or what questions to ask,
Yeah.
and throughout the podcast, and I was like, okay, they haven't been married too long. It's like 40 years. You hear
It's
the
been
pastors.
84 years.
Loyal. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
This. I've only been married for 1 year and a half, and you guys been for 3 years something.
3 years, yeah.
And
Almost to the day.
yeah, so I was just wondering. I was like, okay, I can't ask for like a crazy stuff, but
Yeah.
like this, this like always this thing where like you hit this like reality of marriage
Yeah.
before you had this whole image of what it would be like, and all this, and then
Right.
you hit reality. Not like a bad thing, but this is like, okay, this is
Yeah.
what he actually is. So my question was like, what was that?
Wow.
What was the moment of reality? Yeah, it's
Diving
hard
straight
hitting.
in.
Not
Hard
like
hitting.
not like reality, like this is the truth. But I was like, okay, I had this assumption of this, but like
Yeah.
not in a bad way. I just mean like it just came up with realization
Yeah.
of the actual truth. It's like okay. I don't
Okay.
know.
To be very real, this is funny because I mean, at least for me, I was thinking about it and like, I would love to say like most people, it's like, oh yeah, there's the honeymoon years, and then after that, then reality kicks in. To be very real, I think when it actually like hit me that like that marriage is more than just like I get to be with this person. It's like, oh my God, I'm married, blah blah blah. Like it was when we were actually on our honeymoon.
Yeah.
And there was actually stuff happening that was kind of making our honeymoon difficult, and we actually had to like pray through it, and you know what I mean, and actually trust God with things.
Well.
And then I was like, oh wow, that's right. Like this is not just about I get to have someone like hold my hand for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? That's when I was like, oh wow, there's actually like there's fighting that has to be done, and
Wow.
not just like fighting between each other, because that's also that's,
I realized how
mean,
that could have sounded. Yeah.
yeah, that's also like normal because like oh my God, we're always gonna agree. Yeah, no,
Nope.
but which is fine. But like, there's fighting that we need to do together. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
stuff that we have to fight for and pray into, and I think even when we were actually planning the wedding, there was stuff that we had to pray into, and like trusting God with finances, and like trying to understand like. I realize I'm going to say like a lot. Forgive my Californian speech.
That will be your word.
That'll be my word.
It's okay.
But like praying into finances and trying to actually trust God in the process of planning the wedding, even, because you think, oh, we're getting married, it's going to be easy. Planning a wedding is so complicated and hard, man. Like I remember, I joked with Ina. I was like, dude, thank God we never have to do this again. You know what I mean? Let's do this once, and that's the last time, right? So.
No vow renewal.
At 50.
At 50, maybe we'll do go to a beach
Party.
and just like pray for each other. That's it. It's our renewal. Put it on YouTube, whatever. Matilda?
Yeah, Matilda. Yeah, he calls me by my middle name.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it was. We have very different perspective of things. I realize.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? I
We're
think for
one.
me, yeah. Should we feel the same and be the same? Yeah. No, but for me, it was. I think last year it started hitting more. But before that, I was waiting for it to hit that point when it feels like it actually becomes real. Because I'm not the most vocal person when it comes to personal stuff that goes on inside, and
Doing a good job now.
Yeah.
Now you're just telling everyone.
Yes, might as well tell the whole world. But like, I think for me, last year was a year when it started to become more real. But I think this is also one thing that many people think that straight away when they get married, it's gonna be that was.
So it
That was
depends on the
it.
personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like how we have this idea of everything is going to be perfect, but then it's kind of shallow in the beginning, but then going deeper with the years. And that's something I still look forward to. Like one thing that God has kind of showed is that it's just going deeper and deeper and getting to know him, and I think for him to get to know me even more. But I feel like during the honeymoon as well, there was a lot of things that God set also in
sure.
ground and set the foundation. But I still feel like I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also about myself. Like you think and you change. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's true because you think that like when you get married, like, oh, I married this person
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. It's like, no, that person's changing, every week, So you realize that you're actually not marrying the person, you're marrying their changes.
The
if that
person in
makes
every
sense.
version of themselves they
Exactly.
will be.
You're like
Yes.
like every version of themselves that they will be over the course of years. Sometimes it's going to be better. Sometimes it's not that great. But that's like that's part of the commitment is understanding
Wow.
it's like beyond just like the person that I visually see in front of me right now. That
Yeah.
will change because then you get married and
He's the constant one.
there's this thing called marriage weight that happens. You know what I mean?
Wait, yes, please tell me. Please tell me about marriage weight.
Shh, don't tell everybody. But that's a whole other thing because the other thing is that people think that when you get married, like there's this image that sticks in your head of what that's always supposed to look like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, wait, no, like that's gonna change often, like sometimes. That's the whole part of the wedding vows. Where it's just like within the wedding vows, like in sickness and in health, and you actually go through every aspect.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm gonna be very real with you. When you're standing on the altar getting married, and they say in sickness and in health, for better, for worse, for better or worse,
What's
and then you realize what you're actually signing up for. It's amazing, because then it makes the commitment that much more
Yeah.
real,
I think, I don't know why, we're talking about vows right now. And my brain, I think, has just always been like, yes, and shall you ever get sick, like deathly ill, I'll still love you.
I'll love you through that. It's fine. Don't worry.
You know what I mean? But like the whole idea, it's like, it's the constant up and down,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
better
for
or
sure.
worse. Not
Yeah.
like one day if it gets really, really bad, but it's like, no, and like today when it's better and worse 5 million times,
Yep.
Wow.
I think Perry felt like she felt the sickness and death like right away because like
Yeah.
we wasn't like it was just like right after honeymoon that I got malaria
Oh,
something like that.
I
Yeah,
remember
it's
that.
true.
That's
and
right.
I was like super ill, and she was
Yeah.
like no,
Yeah.
praying
What
right
is
there,
this?
it's
You're
like
like, no, no.
Interceding
Yeah.
at your bedside
Yeah.
for like,
that's terrible. But I guess anyways, what I was gonna say like
segue from malaria.
aside from that,
Yeah, just. Yeah.
it's like I was thinking when Ina was talking about like this realization, I was thinking like it probably just changes quite a bit in the different couples, not just because you're different people and different couples and how it works together is different, but
Yeah.
as well like how you enter into the relationship, because like we know that the clash is kind of like because of the image that we portrayed beforehand
Right. Yeah.
of each other, and then when like it could be a smoother transition if it was different.
Yeah.
But anyways, coming out of that, because I don't want it to get super like
Yeah. I feel
dark or
convicted.
whatever.
Oh my God. It's like,
no, no, but yeah, anyways, I kind of like forgot I think what I was gonna say, but yeah, just this transition can be very smooth.
Yeah.
But anyways, like the other thing what I noticed as well is not just like it's not just a clash where you're like, okay, this is the thing. It's like you get to be part of this
Right.
struggle,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, we're very different, but this is such a beautiful process, understanding each other and getting to know each other and like having the possibility to share with the other person that different perspective, like
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't know, you will find times where your spouse like is like thinking different, and you just been so used to thinking this certain way,
Yeah,
and then
for
you
sure.
realize that you're probably not right, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. It's like, wait,
And it
I
makes
might
more
be wrong,
sense, kind of thing, like what she's saying is right,
Yeah.
It's true.
and
No.
yeah, and it's
And then you're
just
standing there like, oh man.
yeah, not always, but sometimes
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is difficult to swallow, but other times it's
Yeah.
like, wow,
But
and
that's why-
thank you.
That's why I think it's
Sometimes
actually
it's
so
just hard.
cool that God, at least for me, I feel very blessed in like how God has given me Ina, because like you're saying, we have very different personalities, and I think that's why we actually balance each other out so well and we work so well because of that, because if not, like, I mean, you guys can already kind of tell from the podcast, I'm very vocal, and I make this
What?
joke all the time because it's true. But if I have an opinion, I just say it. And I think that's because when I was younger, I didn't really. And then I got older and I was like, well, I have an opinion. Listen to me, you know? And then my wife, on the other hand, is like the one that's like, maybe you don't need to say that right now, you know? And I'm like, why? It's true. And she's like, so it's true, but that doesn't mean you need to always say it, you know? And I'm like,
It's like,
oh, maybe that makes sense, you know?
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah, also culturally. Because I
Yes.
realized we like kind of introduced you, but then just like started laughing and then
Yeah.
went away from it.
Oh,
Yeah.
But Eric, you're from California and you're from
Yes.
Finland.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those are two drastically different. Like not
Yes.
even American and Finnish, but you're
Yeah.
like Californian and like
for sure.
even your small area, like the Swedish speaking Finns,
Yeah.
you know? Like
California is inside the United States.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's a nation inside the nation. No, I'm kidding.
Does it act like that sometimes? You
yes,
tell me.
it acts like that all the time. It's very real.
But even that, like how crazy is that? Just to
It's a little crazy sometimes. It's okay.
Do I hear regret? You know?
Yeah, no.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, also,
Oh my God.
first of all, I was like, God, I can marry someone from England, Australia, somewhere English speaking, but maybe not the States. God, it happened.
And then this bald eagle showed up on her doorstep.
Yes, I don't know what happened. God knows us better than we do. Anyways, yeah, we're not very vocal at home, I feel like, especially not when it comes to feelings, and we kind of want to keep the peace. So, on the
Like
other
relationship
hand,
keepers, or kind of
sorry?
like relationship keepers, or like what do they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like maintaining the
Like
Maintaining
the
the
balance
peace.
and
Yeah,
the peace
yeah.
of the
Maintaining
room.
the peace.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Which
that's
has its positives as well. you know?
yes, it does. But compared to like Mr. Vocal here, and no, I'm joking. It's good. It's very different. Like,
Yeah.
which is something I need to learn. Like he's very vocal about things, as he was saying, and it really helps me to talk more. I'm still learning to be vocal, but it's good things, and I think it's a lot about finding what is good as well in the other culture and bring that
Yeah.
to the table, because like both sides have something to it. Yeah.
I mean, like, and that's why for me, I actually find it to be such a blessing because her culture is so different from mine, and there's aspects of it that I see, and I can go with her to her country and see stuff that I'm like, wow, I understand why she is the way she is in the good ways and the amazing ways, you know what I mean? And like the reasons why I married her, for example. And then I get to see where that comes from, which is huge because there's aspects of that are not in my culture at all.
Yeah.
And then vice versa in the same way, you know, like the household that I grew up in, like to make a long story short, I remember once a friend of mine came over, right? And my dad and my brother were in the back room watching football or whatever. And my friend comes over and we're sitting in the living room, you know, watching TV. And my friend was like, dude, he looks at me terrified, like scared, like he's shaking. And he looks at me, he's like, dude, is everything okay? And I'm looking at him like, but what do you mean? We're just watching cartoons. It's whatever, you know? Like, are you sure? Like things sound pretty bad. I'm like, sound? What do you mean? And he points to the back room, like down the hallway. And I'm like, oh, this is my dad and my brother talking about football. They were literally just talking about football. That's it.
He was like afraid.
But he was terrified, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of household that I grew up in. Like,
Yeah.
we have long debates and we have long conversations about things. And it's so funny because when she came with me to California for the honeymoon, there was like for a couple hours, me, my dad, my brother, my mom would just sit at the table and just talk about like, I don't know, Apple products, like whatever, you know what I mean?
Whatever.
We'll talk about anything, you know, whatever it is. We'll talk about sports or we'll talk about this certain celebrity and what they're doing. And we have all these different opinions. Yeah, but I think this, and if you look at it this way, and just long conversations.
Yeah.
And because of that, that's a part of who I am, you know? And then and then she's there sitting there watching, like, you know, kind of staring at us, and I'm like, you know, you could say things too, you know? So I don't know. It contributes two different aspects of things because if there's something in my head and on my heart, I have to get out of my head, you know, and I say it. And sometimes it's amazing, and other times it's like maybe that could have waited, you know, because maybe right now it's not the right time. So that's why it's awesome to have those kind of, I don't know, balances. And not even to mention like just the actual places physically, what they look like is so different. It's great. I love it.
California and the North Pole.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's amazing. Like when I first went with her to go visit where she's from and the town she's from, I showed up, and as a kid, I used to dream about the level of snow that would be like, because where I live in California, there's no snow. So when I was like, man, I would love to see like this stack of snow and like this house and the lights kind of shining through in the snow. And I got out the car, and I like after getting out at the airport, I almost cried. I said it was amazing. It was so nice, you know. And then like say on the honeymoon we go there, and then the second half of the honeymoon we go to California, and we're standing in like Long Beach on the beach somewhere, you know. And I'm standing there in shorts after the week before, wearing like you know so many layers and thermals, and you know, it was like minus 20 during the day and stuff. You know, it was great. It was awesome. So, anyways, it's just like. The level of just difference in culture is a blessing in so many ways.
That's really cool.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Because I think sometimes there's like a fear of other, like marrying into other cultures, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like what we see is the stereotypes on TV, you know?
Yeah.
The crazy family-in-law or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's another reason why I appreciate you guys so much is just how you're like, no, it's cool. It's chill.
Yeah.
We like
it's good.
it.
It's chill.
It's chill.
Something I want to ask now is let's go back. Let's go back to
the very beginning.
Let's go back to the beginning. Yes. I'm here to hold ground for the singles.
Yes.
Because as we know, we were all friends before you guys got married and before you guys
True.
even started dating or a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that? Because I also know you guys were in very different places.
Very. Yes. We
I don't
were.
want to give too much away. Also talk about only as much as you feel like you would like to talk about.
Yeah.
And just kind of the process to even start
Yeah.
the relationship. Because I feel like that maybe doesn't always get enough of the attention that,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
or like that's not
Yeah.
something we always talk about is this start of the relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
definitely.
okay, and then we were I was single and then I was in a relationship.
Yeah.
But what was that in between time like?
Yeah, in movies it's like that. So it's like I was single, now I'm married. You know, it's just
Yeah,
like
it's like,
like,
oh,
yeah.
all
Yeah.
of a sudden.
Yeah.
I think, well, for me, what God had to deal with me was the right to get married. And
you know, bringing it in hot. You know,
Like if you make me cry on the
going in
fuck.
deep. You know, just you know.
and that was one thing that I didn't recognize for most of my life, but it's been there for a long time. So, to be honest, the first time this even came up,
So she pointed and said this. You know?
yeah,
You see
Whatever this is.
Whatever
Whatever
this is. You know?
yeah, so when that first came up, I was personally in a very selfish position of I didn't think about him as a person at all. It was more about, oh, maybe this could be something, and
That would be husband,
yes,
not Eric.
exactly. But also, yeah, so that was kind of a year before we then started talking. But during that year, God was really working in like giving up the right. And many times I was like, God, I just want to give it up because, yeah. But I felt I was holding it on like this.
Yeah.
And then finally one day, I was like, God, I just want to give this up because it's not healthy. And I felt like I did it. And then the day after, Jana came and talked to me.
Joanna is one of our pastors, for those of you who don't know.
And she was saying that, hey, so Eric is going to come and talk to you. What are you going to say? And I was like,
You're
no.
welcome.
That was my response. Because in my head, what had happened in the meeting, it was in a meeting where I felt like I finally could let go of the right. And I was like, okay, God, what do you have? Because I'm part of a fashion ministry as well. So I was like, okay, God, what are you going to do? Like, this is exciting. Now something is going to happen with that. And then the day after, I hear this. And in my head, I was like, no, but this is not the plan. This is not the plan.
I gotta give this up so I can do ministry for you.
Exactly.
Like, not how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, this is not how it's supposed to go. So I was gonna, basically, I was gonna say no. Or I said no. My first reaction was to say no when I heard about it. But it was more, out of the place that I...
Even though you knew you already kind of had feelings for him.
Yes.
That was a long yes, huh? It was like
Yes.
yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Because I knew there was still something because
cut.
God...
Nope, that's it.
We're doing it again.
Push the mic away.
No, because God had spoken to me about him the year before as well. But I was straight away, I saw myself inside taking it in my hand and just throwing it up to God because I was like, I cannot hold this because then I will take it into my own hands and try to make it happen, which, it's not good. So, So then it was just my first reaction was no. but then I knew very quickly, like I knew, and
You heard that? She said she knew 3 times, huh?
yes.
She knew.
Um,
Just let you know.
Something.
yeah,
She
I
knew
knew
something.
something.
She
I
knew.
knew
Spicy gut
something
reaction.
was on the way, and we talked, and I told him, okay, I need a week to like take it in, or to even if I even want to date, basically, or even like think about it, pray about it, you know.
Because one thing as well that I appreciate is that none of this was like, oh, let's just do it and see what
Forgiveness.
happens. Like there was like no plan. It was like, hey, if we're gonna do this, then we're gonna like
Yeah.
do this, right?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Um,
100%.
which is very rare. I feel like. These
Yeah,
days.
that's the funny thing is because like I was kind of in the same spot, you know. I was in a spot to where like this was kind of brought to the surface when I was in a very selfish phase of my life too. And it's not because I was going through something. It was just because I was actually just growing as a person, you know. And I had just,
Amen to that.
you know what I mean? Like I was just growing as a person and going through a different phase. And in that phase, the idea of a relationship or marriage was like either I didn't want it or the idea that I had about it was completely unhealthy. You know what I mean? And it was one or the other. And God was kind of working on those things in me. And then I finally got to a point in the same way where I felt like I was like, okay, God, and I was like praying about my own life in a different way, but nothing to do with romance or marriage or like, you know, commitment, none of that kind of stuff. And that's when I, like, as I was praying about just my own kind of personal life, this topic of Ina and marriage came into my head from, at least I felt like God was like kind of speaking to me about it. And in the same way that Ina said no is the same way that I was like, no, God, like that's not what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I just kept praying about it, and God kept talking about it. And it was funny because the meeting that Ina was at, it was the same meeting that I was at as well. And it was like this kind of, I guess, like kind of worship-ish gathering, you know what I mean, that some of us were at, that from the church and stuff. And we were all there praying about different things, and you know there was like worship going on and stuff. And throughout, there was a portion of that actually had like a preaching, and during that preaching, it started talking about like committing to things and not being afraid. And I felt very convicted, and I felt like God was talking to me about this. So it's just funny. While in the same type of like meeting, God's talking to her about like letting go of her idea of marriage. God is talking to me about committing to marriage, you know? And so literally the same day that she said, you know what, I let go, I trust you, God. And she's like she said, she was talking about the thing about fashion and ministry and all this stuff. Then suddenly God told me like, hey, go approach her, you know? So of course I did it the right way. I went and talked to my pastor about it, and he laughed at me, of course, because he thought that this was a great idea a long time ago, you know? And then, you know, they went and approached her, and then we started talking about things and started praying about things, you know? And I don't know, it was just so funny because there needed to come back to your point about like the single portion. Being single doesn't mean that there's something wrong. Being single just means that you're in a space that God is building something, just like I'm in a space that God's building something in me now.
Yeah.
It's just a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's in that sense, there's no worse or better, you know? It's just like when I was single, God was building me. When I'm married, God is still building me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just a matter of being in a different phase, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas there's single people who are in a different phase of life in another area, for example, that God is building them in something that I haven't even started yet because I'm not there yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And I think one thing that as when you're single, I think maybe it's a lie that a lot of people have is that my life cannot start before I'm married, and that is such a lie from the enemy.
yeah.
Like
Especially in the church.
yes,
Yeah, especially
Because
in
of,
church.
I think,
Yeah.
years of false,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just lies.
yeah,
Just
literally
lies.
lies. And I think that's one of the things why we need to also check our motivation, I think, because also there's
Yeah.
never a promise in the Bible that says, oh, just because you follow Jesus, you're gonna get married, you're gonna get a husband or a wife. You know, like we don't know what God's plan is for
Plus, that
each
it's better to not.
Yes,
To be honest.
exactly. You know, and I think
Paul was like, "No, I'm good,
yeah,
bro."
and I
I'm
think
sorry.
especially on women, there's a pressure.
Yes.
It's a bigger
Yeah.
pressure, or maybe I'm wrong, but I
I
feel
think
like
generally in the church, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So in a way, yeah, to kind of be able to put that aside and always just okay, Jesus. Someone has talked about this picture of like just run after Jesus and somebody else is gonna run
Yeah.
alongside you, and that's it. Because even so, which I find after we got married, I find it harder to focus on God because now Like, not that he's a bad distraction, but I
No,
need
no,
to
I
maybe.
heard the word distraction. No, no.
But
kidding.
like that's something that I've noticed. I need to be more intentional
Yeah.
with like, okay, God, you're the one that I keeps
Yeah.
my eyes fixed on, and
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was like, well, my voice. Anyways,
He's moved. He's choked up.
He's like, so
yeah.
the Lord is moving. Yeah.
But the same thing as you guys were talking about. Like, I keep thinking sometimes I'm like, and even sound like an old man. You know, it's like, oh, you should enjoy being a single. You know, like, but like when I think about it, I was like, wow, there's so much time I wasted,
Yep.
like overthinking things,
Mm.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's true. So
But I was like, but like not too long. I think it was like a year and a half or something like that. I had a girlfriend, and we had a really bad relationship. Like the whole thing was very like intense. You know,
toxic.
like toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically that.
Eric's like, call it what it is.
I had one of those too. Yep.
Yeah, it was like, and nothing like too crazy. It was just the fact that it was like, you know, it was just like consumption. You know, like.
Yeah, for sure.
And this, yeah, like this person said, I'm gonna marry you, and it was holding me into this idea, and I was like, we need to do that the right way, you know, kind of thing. We just need to ask her, but like not. I was really disappointed about the fact of how long we were taking the step to be committed, you know.
Yeah.
And anyways, this finished, and I was like completely broken, and I was like, I can't go through the same thing. I was like, I can't keep looking for getting married as this is my step to being somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And once I took the decision, I was like, from now on, I'm just gonna put you first, God. Like my relationship with you has to be more important than anything else. And so from there on, I started looking deeper into how I can know God deeper in all this. And from there on, of course, like projects and things start coming up, and you become like more. God flows better, you know, because
more available.
More available
because you're available. And but as you were saying as well, like when the idea comes, when the things of like this could happen, you get like, it's like you disconnect. You know, like the cable is not all the way off, like the TV's still on, but you know you can see the flickering, you know, because it's like almost there, and you need to constantly be like deciding, no, God's first. And that was like, I think the whole time of the being boyfriend and girlfriend before getting married, is such a character development, you know, moment. You know, it's like, okay, God is keeping me accountable alone, not her. Me for my decisions in this moment on what I'm gonna do, everything. You know, it was like, and I think that's just something that we sometimes don't realize, but as well, like I was like, the times where I could be like, just forget about it, trust in God. She already is thinking about you. We've been praying, and God already said yes. Just relax, trust in God,
trust,
be there. You know, there's so many things I feel like I just missed that God was trying to talk to me, and then I got it like 1 year later. And that's the thing, you know. We just, I mean, I don't want to bring condemnation into it, but it's just like we kind of slow things down, you know.
Yeah.
Many times, yes.
But this is the thing that sometimes I like think about, and when I'm praying or whatever, I'm like, wow, God, I could have trusted you on this more.
The funny thing is about that, like, 'cause as you were mentioning that, like, there's something that like came to me that really sums up what you're saying. This is very accurate. And kind of what Ina was saying too is, I had to learn that as a person, I think so much. Sometimes the church, sometimes TV, sometimes just even like, you know what I mean? Like
Disney.
Even sometimes our parents, even sometimes our grandparents, and the ideal of what marriage is supposed to look like, supposed to, quote unquote. It instills in you that your job is to make your spouse happy. You know what I mean? And that's my job. And that's such a backwards way of thinking. You know, my job as a person, and I remember at one time when God kind of spoke this to me, it just completely destroyed my mind. My job as a person, as a man, is to serve God. Now that I've gotten married, I just have someone to help me do that.
Yeah.
And vice versa in the same way. Ina's job is to serve God, and now she has someone to help her do that. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like her job is to make me happy or my job is to make her happy. If I'm thinking that my job is to make my wife happy, I'm already stepping off base. Because the only person that can actually bring my wife happiness is her relationship with God. That's it. You know?
Yeah.
And then when you take that weight off your shoulders, there's so much more freedom and relaxation, and like I can enjoy my marriage because I know it's not my job to make my wife happy. That's about her relationship with God. My job is just to actually chase after God and what He wants to do in my life, and she has the capacity because of the way that He's built her to help me do that.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? Which is so cool because then I'm so relaxed, you know? It's like, oh my God, like now I just have someone to help me do these amazing things that God wants to do, you know? Which is so much more chill, you know? It's so much more chill.
Yeah.
But like you said, I had the same kind of perspective and perception before because I had a very similar kind of toxic relationship that I was in for a very long time. I think that's why it was the way it was, because I think, like you said, the word you used was consuming. It's so real, you know? We were both just consuming from each other because we had these expectations that like, you're supposed to give me this. And the other way around, she was like, you're supposed to give me this. And when both people are pointing at each other saying, you're supposed to give me, you will never fill that quota. You know what I mean? It's impossible.
Wow.
So, and that's why
That's good.
things were so uneven and so continuously like just clashing, because we had this expectation that you're supposed to give me this, and she's saying the same thing to me
all the time.
You know what I mean? And then we're like, oh, why are we always arguing so much? That's because the thing that I need is not supposed to come from you. It's supposed to come from God and my relationship with God, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it's such a strong point. And now it makes my life with my wife so much easier, you know? Now, does that mean we never argue or don't see eye to eye? Of course, that happens all the time, you know, because we're, like we said, different cultures, different people, different everything, you know,
Human beings.
different human
That's
beings.
the thing, is like, what we can see as repetition or pattern in here is like, we make it as when we're single, and we still want to make it when we are married. It's the control of the situation and what has to happen. But when we let go, we get to actually experience and have that flow of God through us, because it's not just letting go, it's letting God control the situation. And I think as well, like, it's not just letting go, but it's also when you have God as your core. It's like, you don't feel like it is something you have to do. Like, this is my role in the marriage, that I have to fulfill her or make her happy. You get to, you know, it just happens because
that's just the cherry on top,
spark,
you know?
of the leftover kind of your relationship with God that you had like a few minutes ago when you had your quiet time, you know, or like when you were talking with Him. That it just comes off. And you don't feel like, you're not waiting for something back, you know.
And that's what makes the trusting of each other so much easier, because then through trusting God, I'm trusting my wife as well, you know, and both ways around. Like, because then I'm actually trusting that God is doing in my wife what He needs to do and building in her. And then I'm trusting that God will use her to help build me as well. You know what I mean? So then it takes so much of the load of how things are supposed to work off of our shoulders, you know? And it's such a big example of actually trusting Him, you know, because then I get to know that, like, okay, I can focus on the goal that God wants me to push for and achieve and change, and, you know, however that looks, you know, in my relationship with God, because I know that God is working in her, and that work that He's doing in her will also be a blessing to my life and help me accomplish those things, you know? But yeah, we got really deep, huh?
I think something else that I love about all this as well is that, like, how the Trinity example, like, you know, image plays as well within marriage, because when we look towards God, you know, if we see ourselves, I am here, and she's here, and God is in the center, you know, we are all going towards God. The path, the gap in between, it becomes smaller and smaller the closer we get to God. So those indifferences and stuff.
The closer you guys each get to God, the closer you get to
Yeah,
each
because
other.
it's not just
Exactly.
it's not
100%.
just that we get closer as well. It's that we let go of things that we're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
That God didn't intend for us for, and that connects us into.
And that's why it's so important as well as a married person to really focus on my relationship with God, because my relationship with God impacts my wife. If my relationship with God is slowly starting to falter because I'm not spending enough time with him, I'm not praying enough, that impacts my wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I need to also understand that me pushing for God is also such a selfless thing as well, because me pushing for God is not only about me now. Now it's also about building my wife, you know, because then that's where I push for God, he builds in me, and then I trust that work will bless my wife. You know what I mean? So it makes, I don't know, it gives me this sense of like responsibility, but responsibility that I want to have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It gives me like this encouraged feeling to actually want to build my relationship with God even more, because then I know through doing that, God's also building my wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's cool.
So yeah, it kind of, like you said, it kind of is a really good example of like the Trinity, because it makes all these moving parts just kind of become glued together. You know.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I don't know. Like it's super cool and super deep, but it's true, and that's why, like as you mentioned, as a single person, when I was single, I was learning that.
Yeah.
You know, and I was learning how to focus on those things. And once I fully let go of that and the idea that I had about it because of TV and previous relationships and whatever else, then God was like, sick. Now he's ready. You know what I mean? And I'm like, ready for what? You know? And he's like, shh, trust me. I have a plan. I have a plan.
No.
And I'm like, wait, no, don't say that. That's scary. You know?
I'm on my comfort zone.
I feel comfortable. Don't push me. You know?
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Well, honestly, I think it's time that we'll start wrapping up. But believe it or not, Lucas, I think instead of closing statements, I think I would rather. So we have this thing where it's closing statements, right? And he forgets it every week and whatever.
The last two
No
podcasts I
judgment, no
haven't forgotten,
judgment.
but
Yeah,
yes.
that's cool. That's cool. No, but I think instead of that, everyone kind of going around saying like what their final thoughts are. I would love if you guys could give 3 pieces of advice. One for the single, one for the person that's in a relationship and maybe is not sure if it's something that they should, is from God, not from God, kind of in that in between, and then the married peeps out there.
Okay, so one for the single, one for the relationship, and one for the married.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of pressure,
yeah,
I know, but
no, it's all good.
Okay, for the single, I would say.
I'm holding on to the chair.
I know. This is gonna get sharp. Oh,
No. Don't compare yourself to others and where they're at, and just keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, because he's going to take you where you need to go, and he's the best one for you. And he has the best plan. Yeah, so that's it.
That's for the single one.
That's for the single one.
do you have anything to add to
We're
that?
going one by one.
Oh, do you have anything to add to the?
This is the thing, because like literally, I right now while we were talking, like a piece of advice for all 3 people. It's like for the single person, it's not about you. For the married person, it's not about you.
Yeah.
For
I
the
mean,
person
it's
in a
true.
relationship, it's not about you. Like I had that come to my mind because it's so true. You know what I mean?
You
It's
need
like,
an alarm for that. You
know what I mean? It's like
it's just popping out
in
every 1 hour.
all 3 scenarios, it's
Yeah.
really not about what you want or
Yeah.
about you. It's really about pushing for God and trusting him, and then God, those things will be added onto you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know how to talk.
That's
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I
Well,
have. You know.
Yeah. So I said for the single, for the person who's in a relationship, obviously pray, but I think also, listen to God, but also sometimes we need to realize that we also need to make a decision. So sometimes it's like we think, oh no, but it's just one person out there. No, it's not. You can make a
You're
choice.
coming in hot. Yes, that's true.
make a
And I
choice.
think I think so many people, especially Christians, think that, oh no, Jesus has only one person for me. And then they go around and round and because as we talked about, another person cannot bring you true happiness. Yes, it's a blessing. Like Eric is such a blessing, but I need to have that relationship with God that actually brings me the deep joy.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, again, listen to God and pray, But if you have any kind of peace is one thing. Like, it can be turmoil around, but if you feel peace, great. Like, talk to people around you. How do you see?
Ask for advice.
Oh,
Exactly.
that's super important, actually.
And because sometimes also people from the outside see us better than we do ourselves. We're
Sure.
kind of blind to our own self. And for the married ones, something that at least is very key for me now is communication. And I am, yeah, I'm hoping that I'm learning a lot in this season of that, because talking and sharing what's going on. Because if not, I'm putting the other person. If I don't say what's going on, I'm putting a pressure on Eric that is not his to carry.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know, maybe. So I need to be vocal. But as well, I think to say what your needs are is a good thing. Like,
Yeah.
even if I also don't think there's this thing, oh, but this person knows me, so I can stop saying what I want.
They can't read your mind. I
You know,
promise you.
like,
can't.
always say
Trust me,
what
I've
you
tried.
want. Yes, I would rather have him read
I've
my
tried
thoughts
the equation. It
Tried
didn't
to
than
work.
say, yeah. So to say what your needs are and be honest, I think that's for the married people.
Yeah. There was a couple things that you mentioned that I feel like are really key, so I'm going to do the mic again real quick.
Just pull out your highlighter for us.
Pull out my highlighter and just kind of. One of the things that she was talking about is about like there's no right like one person for you. Like when I was actually praying about things, God presented her to me, but He said, "What are you gonna do?" I had to choose. It is a choice, and that's important because then you remember that like okay, every day it's a choice.
Yeah.
I made the commitment. I've said, okay, I'm in. God, I trust you. I'm going for this. I love this person. But I get to choose every day. I have to choose every day. And that was my second point, is that for the married people to remember, because I don't know how far you guys have gotten on the podcast with like spiritual things and so on and so forth and impacts of spiritual things. But
Just go for it. Have at her.
one of the things I was going to say is like, I've noticed because of my family tree, how much people's actions spiritually affect their family, their generation,
Yeah.
the people that come behind them. You know, it has impact. It has weight spiritually, which changes people's lives. So in the same way, the choices that I make impact my wife spiritually.
Yeah.
There's been times where I'm off somewhere. I'm at work or I'm somewhere, and there's something going on, and I feel it. I know, like I know something's not right. And then I call, like, or I feel maybe anxious, and I talk to Ina, and she's like, "I was super anxious today because of this." Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and not to be super mystical about it, but like the point is that like the decisions that I make have an impact on my spouse. And that's so important to remember as a married person, because it gives you a sense of accountability, not just with God, but also with your family, this new family member that I just, gained. So I need to pay attention to those things. And it's not to be afraid of making choices, because there's grace. That's what covers the mistakes that we make.
Yeah.
But to be thoughtful in choosing something and making decisions that will be a blessing, rather than making a decision that's just because I want it or I need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to add. Yeah.
I wanted to say something related with what you, I guess, were saying as well. Like just, to when you're single, just take the time, get to know God,
Yeah.
get rooted in Him.
Yep.
The more rooted you are, the better. Because then all those things that you're struggling with are gonna become stronger when you're married. They're gonna be like louder in a way. The other person will see it right away as well, because
Can't hide it, I assume.
You can't hide it. No,
it's
you
not
can't.
just that. It's because as well usually they're the opposite of you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But as you were saying, those things, we are dragging the other person in. Like when we bring them to the altar, when we said yes,
Yeah.
we're bringing all that, and that the thing that we're struggling with, she's struggling with as well.
Yeah.
And so that and and I guess the other thing which I'm trying to keep in mind all the time is that, this will be like not super spiritual, it's just plain
Yeah.
example, for the married people. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
is it worth it to fight for your right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
for the truth,
Yep.
to being right.
Yep.
Solid
Because
point.
you're gonna encounter so many times, like I've encountered so many times where we are like having this discussion, and I'm like, I am right, and I know it.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
but is it what my dad says all the time? You know, and he didn't say this to me when we were married. When we were kids, he would say to when me and my brother or my siblings when we were fighting, it's like, but what is it gonna give? Like if you're
Yeah.
right.
What
did
do you gain?
What do you
Would
gain
you
from
gain-
that? Yeah.
Like, would it bless us?
Yeah.
Would it really bless your relationship with you and your brother,
Yeah.
or like in this case, your spouse?
Yeah.
Would it actually bring it there?
Yeah.
You know, and just having that as a standard, you know, mindset
Yep.
is
Mm-hmm.
very like it's very linked with the side of it's not about you, it's about us as a family.
Yeah. It's about
But
us now.
yes,
Yep.
like let's decide to bless each other with the decision we make, you know. Yeah, because that decision you make is gonna hit back, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. That decision you make lands somewhere.
It might make things softer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we have to end it here, guys. Which is sad. I've been having a great time.
Yeah, me too. It's nice.
Good.
I feel like we
Really
could
good.
talk
You
for
guys-
another hour,
You guys
know.
comfortable? Because maybe we'll save these chairs for maybe a part 2 sometime.
Ooh, that'd be
Maybe.
sick. I would love it. Yeah. That'd be
Yeah.
super
Yep.
cool.
They like the
The
mic.
vocal one, huh? Miss Ina, you know?
Oh, no, this is- See, you made her nervous. She just made some sounds.
It's like,
No
keeps on
pressure, no
pointing
pressure, no
things
pressure.
out.
Yeah. Just kidding.
Yeah. But again, thank you, Eric and Ina, the Johnsons, our tumble in graphic. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you guys. We love you guys.
Love you.
And thank you everyone
you
that's
guys
been
too.
listening to this. Yeah, we will see you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was awesome. Really good.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Anchor of the Week.
Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube so you never miss an episode.
See you next time.